Hey everyone, this is WWE Fan 1993. Thank you for checking out my video. Today we are going to be talking about the WWE Women's Evolution. This past week was the anniversary of the Women's Evolution, and to celebrate that, I decided to start out all the way back to 2002 and make our way up to 2020 to see how our women started from beginnings all the way to the end. Now, before we go into any detail, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell to make sure that you are notified when new content is created. I love making content and I love interacting with you guys, so feel free to make sure you write in the comments. I like to hear your thoughts. You can maybe tell me what are some of your favorite WWE women matches. So before we get down to business, let's go over some of the criteria for this. So there are some pretty decent matches from back in the 90s and 80s, but I figured to myself, what do I remember? So I was born in 1993, so I started getting really into wrestling in 2000, and I said to myself, I'm going to pick the matches that I remember seeing or hearing about during my time. So any matches prior to 2002 do not count on my list. It doesn't mean that those matches aren't terrible. Like, I'll give you some matches to check out. So SummerSlam 1994, Bull Nakano against Alundra Blaze for the Women's Championship. A lot of people credit that match as one of the first starting points for the Women's Evolution. But once again, I was only one. I wasn't even one at the time when this happened. So that match does not count. Also, another match that you might want to check out is the Jumping Bomb Angels against the Glamour Girls. Now, they've had a lot of good matches, and the Jumping Bomb Angels were very impressive. They were two women from Japan, and they just paved the way, I think, for a lot of the Japanese wrestlers now, like Asuka, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, Gail Kim, many others. So, those are the criteria, and also, one last thing. We're only covering WWE women matches. I know in AEW, WCW, TNA, there are also some memorable matches and moments, but we're only talking about WWE. So let's get right into it. Our first match I'm covering today comes from November 2002, the Survivor Series. The WWE Women's Championship is on the line in a hardcore match. Now, WWE hadn't had a hardcore match since 1999 at that point, so things are really looking up. So we saw the WWE Women's Champion Trish Stratus defending her title against Victoria. The storyline was that Victoria was this crazy, psychotic woman who did fitness modeling with Trish Stratus, and Trish got signed before she did, and because of that, she's hated her. But Victoria hears voices in her head. We see her backstage asking a mirror if she's pretty, and then she breaks it. She sees a cardboard cutout Trish Stratus, and she rips the neck of it. So she has serious problems, and I love how the announcers are continuing to build that up during the match. This is a very, very good match. I remember seeing it live and being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe women can do that. I also remember there was a moment in the match when Victoria's nose gets busted open, and I do remember seeing that when I was younger and being surprised that that would actually happen in a female match. These two women gave it their all. They hit each other with trash can lids. There was a moment where Victoria was using a fire extinguisher, and that is how the match came to an end. Victoria had a fire extinguisher outside the ring. She blew it all in Trish's face, and she came into the ring, and I think hit her with a kick and then pinned her to become the new women's champion. At the time, I was surprised, because I always loved Trish, and I was surprised to see Victoria actually win the title. It was a very good match. It wasn't the greatest match, but for the time being, it was good. So I gave that match a 7 out of 10. 10 is the best match, 1 meaning it was terrible. So it was in the middle, wasn't great, wasn't bad, but it definitely was a cornerstone, the beginning point for the Women's Evolution. The next match we're going to talk about is very famous. It's from WWE Raw, December 6, 2004. the WWE Women's Champion Trish Stratus defending her title against Lita. Now, these two have had a rivalry since they came into WWE back in 2000. And they're going to bring that rivalry to a head 4 years later. This is the first time that two female competitors main evented a WWE show. This was huge. You always saw women get like 2 minutes or in bra and panties. These two women, their storyline was so important that it made it to the last match. And they definitely delivered. They gave it their all. They both looked great. And Trish and Lita just had an amazing match. And Lita ended up jumping outside of the ring, totally hurting her neck. I think she broke it or just terrible. But she ended up finishing the match. She hit a moonsault and got the pin. And these two women proved that not only can women main event a show, but they could put on an amazing match. Lita versus Trish, Raw, December 6th, 2004. Check that out. Our next match on the countdown comes from WrestleMania 22. The WWE Women's Champion again, Trish Stratus, defending her title against Mickie James. Now, Mickie James was known in TNA as Alexis Luray. She competed in the Indies, and when she was brought up in WWE, she played Trish Stratus' biggest fan. She dressed up as Trish. She made out with Trish during New Year's Eve. Well, I'm sorry, during like the Christmas time because there was mistletoe. So, although they were friends, she kind of crossed the line numerous times. And there's one point where Trish basically tells her, listen, I'm your friend, but this is getting too much out of hand. You're getting too close to me. I don't want nothing to do with you. Well, that ticked off the psychopath Mickie James, who ended up attacking Trish and basically telling her, I was obsessed with you, but now I want that title more. So the match is set. And these two women, really, another great match. Mickie was amazing with being psychotic, her laughing, her ability to just get the crowd riled up. You have Trish, who is the defending champion, beloved. But what was interesting about this actual match was Trish was getting booed. Mickie James was getting a lot of the cheers to kind of show you what the direction of the division was going. Trish was amazing, but I think the fans were wanting to see a little bit different. But I do still love Trish. And they had an amazing match. And Mickie ended up getting the win. But what was interesting about this match as well was there's a moment where Mickie has her hand on Trish's crotch area. And she ends up like licking her hand afterwards. And I remember seeing that live. This is before I knew anything about sex or anything like that. And I was like, oh, okay. That's kind of strange. But it happened. And then when they showed it now on the network, you'll see the camera cuts away. So that moment happened. And it was a great match, though. I don't want to talk about that. Their whole story was good. They told an amazing story in the ring. And I would check that one out as well. Our next match comes from 2006 as well, September. Unforgiven 2006. The WWE Women's Champion Lita defending her title against Trish Stratus, and what this match became known as was Trish's last match, her retirement match. And these two really had their rivalry come to a head here, and this is their last match. And the two of them really poured it all into this. This is Trish's last match, so she wanted to end with a bang. As she said in the promo, the best people leave while they're, still high and still doing good. And Lita did a great send-off to Trish. They had a great back and forth. Women were falling off the top rope. Trish was doing Stratusfaction, and she even put her in the sharpshooter to get the win, which they were in Canada, so I understand why she did that. It was a very good match. It showed that Trish can still go. She is leaving on a high note. Lita, an amazing heel, amazing athlete, and I love their chemistry, and you will too. Check out Unforgiven 2006. The next match for the Women's Evolution comes to us from TLC 2010 and is the first ever women's tag team tables match. So in this match, you have the team of Lay Cool, Michelle McCool, and Lita going up against the team of the WWE Divas Champion Natalya and the Glamazon Beth Phoenix. Now, for weeks and weeks, Lay Cool makes fun of Beth and Natalya, basically double teaming Natalya, and finally Beth Phoenix comes to her aid, and they make this table that has a picture of Layla and Michelle, like a cartoon, and they're hideous with like witches hats, and it's basically saying I'm flawed. And so Lay Cool is playing Scare of the Table. Michelle McCool is great in the ring. I don't think she gets a lot of credit. Obviously Natalya is amazing. Beth is great. And Natalya and Beth just show what a great team they are. And how powerful they are. It was a good match. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was the first time we saw women doing something different. You know, we're starting to see things. This is 2010. We're starting to see things kind of slowly go in motion. We're seeing women's doing more extreme stuff. And this is a very good match. Our next match on the countdown comes to us from WWE Hell in a Cell 2011. The WWE Divas Champion Kelly with Eve Torres in her corner is going to be taking on the Glamazon Beth Phoenix with Natalya in her corner. Now, Beth had been challenging Kelly twice. This would be her third match. Kelly beat her both of those times, and now the Glamazon was trying to sell the score and get the title. Beth Phoenix's character at this time was basically attacking the beautiful blondes, making them scream and yell, and that is exactly what she did in this match. She put Kelly in this impressive submission hold, and Natalya says, "Kelly, scream," with the microphone, and Kelly's screaming. And Beth ends up winning, and it was an amazing match. Beth just showed how much of a powerhouse she really is. She was dominant. Kelly held her own. She was good as well. It was a very good match. That one checked out as well. Next, we're at WWE Payback 2013. The WWE Divas Champion Kaitlyn defending her title against AJ Lee. And these two have a lot of history. Basically, Kaitlyn had a secret admirer, and it ended up being Biggie Langston. He came out and he drops Kaitlyn because he doesn't like her, and AJ Lee set it up and started it. So these two had some really bad blood going into this match. And I feel like they both wanted to show that women can have a good storyline and a good match, and that's exactly what they did. They gave it their all. Kaitlyn looked good. AJ Lee looked amazing. AJ Lee is one of the better female competitors. That is another one that kind of goes unnoticed, and she did amazing work, and she ended up getting the victory with the Black Widow, and it did set up for a match at the next pay-per-view, Money in the Bank. But it was a great match, and I say check that one out as well. Next, we're at NXT Arrival. We're going to 2014. Paige taking on Emma for the NXT Women's Championship. And the NXT Women's Champion is Paige at the time. These two, so I saw this match live, and I've never seen any NXT before. So I was pleasantly surprised by the ability that they both had. Paige was maybe like 22 at the time, 21. So young and just way ahead of her years. She's been fighting for years because her family back in England fight as well. Emma is another talent who doesn't really get as much credit. She's amazing in the ring, an amazing technical wrestler. Paige is another technical wrestler. Great match. Paige ended up winning, but both women showed off that just because you're in NXT, just because you're under developmental, does not mean you can't have better matches than the people on the main roster. Next, we go to NXT TakeOver, the NXT Women's Championship on the line. Natalya at Bret the Hitman Hart in her corner, going up against Charlotte with her father, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, in her corner. These two women, the storyline was the Flairs versus the Harts. Who was going to get the final win? And they put on a technical masterpiece. They went at it. Natalya calls this match her favorite match of all time. This match kind of launched Charlotte to show the stuff that she can do. Very impressive, both of them. They put on a great show. They put on a match to say, follow this. And they were really great at it. It's one of Charlotte's best matches. Charlotte ended up taking the win, but I tell you to go back and watch it. we're going to have a lot of NXT in these next matches. So we're going to NXT TakeOver Rival, the fatal 4-way match for the NXT Women's Championship. The NXT Women's Champion Charlotte defending her title against the Boss Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Bayley. This is one of my favorite matches I have on here. Each woman showed off their talents and their abilities. They had an amazing match. Each one looked great, and it showed what the future will be like in WWE, and it's interesting to see them in there because they really are all over WWE right now. You have the man Becky Lynch, Sasha and Bayley are tag team champions, and Sasha is the women's champion. Charlotte was a former NXT women's champion as well, 10-time women's champion WWE. These women gave it their all. It was an amazing match, and I think you should check that one out. Next, we're at NXT TakeOver Unstoppable. The NXT Women's Champion, Sasha Banks, who had just won the title at NXT TakeOver Rival in that fatal 4-way match, was defending her title against Becky Lynch. This is Becky Lynch's kind of coming out match. She kind of showed everybody who she was. Sasha, of course, kept her attitude. Fans were chanting ratchet. Fans were behind Becky. Fans were behind Sasha. This was a good match. Sasha ended up winning, but it showed the rivalry that these two will eventually have in WWE. Next, we have NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. We're seeing the NXT Women's Champion, the Boss Sasha Banks, take on Bayley. This is one of the best WWE matches of all time. This match put women's wrestling on the map. Now, a lot of people will look at this match like, oh, it's not so impressive. But you gotta think, imagine back in 2015, seeing that and knowing women had never put on a show. The psychology, the physicality, everything was great. These two women once again stole the show and proved that not only should you root for men, but you should root for women too, because they're going to put on some amazing matches. Bayley was impressive. She took the win. She deserved to win. Sasha was an amazing champion. And at the end, the 4 horsewomen, Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, Sasha, embracing, throwing up the 4 horsemen sign with their fingers. Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky were leaving NXT. Bayley was the last remaining 4 horsewomen there. So it was emotional to see all of them together and to think where they are now. They really did come to a full circle. So we have 2 more matches next. The next match comes from WWE Survivor Series 2015. The WWE Divas Champion Charlotte defending her title against Paige. Now, Paige was basically ripping into Charlotte's family. She was talking about her brother, Reed, who passed away a couple years prior. Charlotte wrestles for her brother, Reed, and Paige just, it was very personal. These two had a great match. This match put Charlotte on the map for WWE matches. Natalya put her on the map for NXT, and Paige and Charlotte just showed once again how great young athletes are. They tore the house down. They had a good match, and I suggest checking this one out. Our last match on our countdown for 2002 to 2015 comes from NXT TakeOver London. We're seeing Emma with Dana Brooke against the amazing Asuka. This is Asuka's second TakeOver match, and she was just brilliant. Emma was a great challenger because she was a heel, but she was still great technically in the ring, and Asuka is just a powerhouse. Seeing her move, seeing how quick, how fast, and just how hard-hitting she was exciting. We have a new woman in here who's going to do even more. She's going to push the division more. So I was excited to see that. It wasn't like a main event type match. It was, I think, the opening match. But it did say follow that. And they had a great match. So those are my list for the greatest women's matches, the women's evolution from 2002. My next list will take part from the years 2016 to 2020. And then you'll have 2 videos to remember to check out on the WWE Network. I'm here for you. I got it down. Check out these matches on the WWE Network. You will like them. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you stay notified when new content comes out, and make sure you add comments. What are your favorite WWE women matches? If there's a match on here that's not on here that you like, tell me. What are some of your favorite women's matches in WWE? Thank you for tuning in, and I will be seeing you shortly with new content.